Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Dawson and welcome to Can You Relate? This is Cleveland's relationship show. If you've been tuning in, you know that this is a show designed for you and all of your relationships, whether it's your relationship with your spouse or your kids or your coworkers or your friends. This show is here to help you. I actually recommend that you watch the show with paper and pencil because we're going to be providing you with all kinds of information and resources. Later in the show, we're going to talk about what is it like to live in Northeast Ohio in gray weather and what can happen with anxiety and depression. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. But first, I'm going to introduce you to someone who actually makes a living out of teaching people how to be happy. So let's get started. You know, how you feel can really affect your relationships. And some people seem to be naturally happy, and some people don't seem to be naturally happy. So I'm going to talk to Jim Smith today. Welcome to the show. You are the executive happiness coach, and you tell people that we need to practice happiness. What does that mean?
Well, just like if you were engaging in some kind of a fitness program, you would have to practice. You know, if you want to run a marathon, you practice running. If you want to bulk up, you have to practice lifting weights. Well, you have to think of your emotions all as muscles as well.
Okay.
And the ones you work out get stronger, and the ones you don't pay as much attention to get weaker and atrophy. And so many times, simply to be happier, what you have to do is work on building up strength in some of the positive emotion muscles.
So for someone who it doesn't come naturally, now for me I must say I'm kind of happy, you know, but some people just, it's more difficult. How do you help them do that? I mean, what do you say to them? What do you give them? Do you give them tools to be happy?
Right. Again, to use the personal trainer analogy, if you went to a gym, they would say, okay, well, let's start with 5-pound weights and then move up to 10 and 15 with the emotions. What we're going to do is we're going to start with small things you can do on a regular basis, practices you can engage in.
Okay.
One of my favorite and one of the most powerful tools is something called a gratitude journal. And that's where you simply write down every day 3 positive things that have happened in your life or 3 good things that have happened in the past 24 hours.
Do you recommend you start your day this way? Like you get up and do that, or?
Starting your day is a good way to, kick off with some optimism. There's also a lot of research that shows that when you do it right before you go to bed at night, you do it right before you drop off, and then it can actually increase how much positivity shows up in your dreams.
Really?
Yeah.
So does that affects the brain chemistry before you go to bed, or I mean, I don't know if that has anything.
Well, it's not so much about brain chemistry, it's about brain attention. Okay. If every day you look at the ground and you only listen to the things that are going wrong and people dying in wars, that's what you're going to notice. But if every day you practice paying attention to good things, positive things, after a while you start to notice them more often, and you get that good feeling, which starts to feed into itself, and then you're starting to look for more positive things in the world.
So it feeds on itself. So the endorphins
It's
start
an upward
building.
spiral.
I never heard that about before you go to bed. They always tell you don't watch the news. Sorry, this is TV, but you're not supposed to watch the news before you, or read something negative. So that makes complete sense.
Right.
Anything else? This is really a good idea.
Well, there are dozens of practices you can engage in and lots of resources. Another thing that I tend to focus people on is that while emotions often just happen, some people say, I can't control my emotions.
Reactionary, right.
Maybe you can't control that the emotions are occurring, but once they are occurring, you can do much to actually manage how they impact you. Okay. And one of the most powerful tools that you own is your breath, Kathy. It's your breath.
Which, by the way, I hold a lot.
Well,
which maybe is
that's a bad practice.
Right, I know.
Right? Because when you hold your breath, what happens is you move all the energy in your body kind of up here, and then you're like all in anxiety and worry, right? And stiffness. Right. So if I were to have you right now, for instance, just kind of sit up tall.
Okay.
And just kind of breathe.
Tight, right?
Right, you're tight here. And breathe into your deep belly here. Really breathe down deep into your body. Okay. And what do you notice happen?
That feels good.
Doesn't it feel good, right?
No.
So just imagine if every day you took a couple of minutes to do that, or did it for maybe 1 minute 3 times a day. After a while, you'd train your body to be able to come back in from here, anxiety and worry and fear, and come back to more of a calm,
centered
feeling
Okay, listen,
where
Jim,
you can access happiness.
I have to believe that all this stuff is then impacts you, which then impacts your relationships, because you bring yourself wherever you go.
Absolutely.
And we have to have you back, because we just got to the tip of the iceberg.
We did.
So if you want to get happy, so they say, you want to get a hold of Jim Smith, and you can do that by going to his website, theexecutivehappinesscoach.com. Jim, thank you so much for being here.
It's been a pleasure. Keep breathing.
Thank you. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more of Can You Relate?
Up next, you just heard how to be happy, but what if you need a bit more help? We'll share how to chase away the midwinter blues, naturally. And later in the show, he's a good dog who's had bad experiences. We'll help you rehabilitate the one you rescued. For those who struggle with drug and alcohol addiction, finding the courage to change is the first step to lasting recovery. Discover life in recovery. Discover Glen Bay.
Glen Bay, nationally recognized drug and alcohol treatment for adults. Discover more at glenbay.com.
You just heard about how to make yourself happier. But what if you have anxiety, you have depression, and you need more help? We've got Dr. Sherry Tenpenny here to help you. She's got some really interesting ways that you treat patients that are quite unusual, and you are the owner of Tenpenny Integrative Medical Center.
Right,
in Middleburg Heights.
In Middleburg Heights,
yes.
right.
So tell us about some of the things. If I were a patient coming in with anxiety or depression, what would you do that I might not be used to hearing elsewhere?
One of the things that we do is a really rather unique type of urine test that what it does is it measures the amino acid levels in your body, and it measures the neurotransmitters in your body. Now, amino acids are the building blocks of neurotransmitters. And the best way to kind of think about neurotransmitters is that there's 2 kinds. There's excitatory and there's inhibitory. It's sort of like the gas pedal in your car and the brake in your car.
Okay.
So if you've got too much gas, you have anxiety, you have insomnia, you have all those sort of things of too much acceleration. And if you have too much brake, then you have depression, insomnia, sleep disorders, things like that. So you want to have the balance between the gas and the brake. And if those 2 things can be in balance, then you don't have depression, you don't have anxiety, you can sleep, you get your libido back. I mean, there's all kinds of balance.
Are you hearing this? Okay, wait. This all happens from a urine test?
From a simple urine test, yeah.
Okay, any other tests that you use to?
Well, we also can use a saliva test, and the saliva test actually is the state-of-the-art test for your adrenal glands. Because if your adrenal glands are super high, you have anxiety, and if they're super low, you have fatigue and depression. The state-of-the-art of that is that you do 4 saliva tests over the course of the day. You do it at home.
Okay.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and bedtime, and it's the shape of the graph that's important. Your cortisol level your hormone levels should be high in the morning and low at night.
Okay.
And if there is an abnormality there with both the urine test and with the saliva test, we use a set of supplements that are amino acids, and the program is usually about 4 months. It isn't something you have to take your entire life.
And it just gets you back on track?
It gets you back on track, and because it's targeted, we know exactly what it is that you need. You don't have to use a shotgun approach to get yourself better.
Interesting. Now, what about vitamin D? Because I'm always hearing about that affects depression or.
Yeah, over the course of the last maybe 2 years, there's been a large number of studies that have been done on vitamin D. And there's a specific type of vitamin D level. It's 25-hydroxy vitamin D. And that level should be at least 50. And I know a lot of people go to their doctor, they get a test done, the nurse calls back and says it's in the normal range. Well, the range may be anywhere from 20 to 200.
Okay.
That's a huge range. And it's maybe you're in the normal range, but not the ideal range. So I always encourage everybody that when you get a test done, if it's your vitamin D test or any other test, you should get a copy of that for your records.
Okay.
And that you should know it should be at least 50.
I got to tell you, I love having you on because I always tell the guests tell the viewers, certain guests, make sure you have paper and pen.
Right.
You're one of them.
Oh, thanks.
Now,
Thanks.
you're going to be very impressed with this. Oh, yes. I take cod liver oil.
Good for you, because
Now-
cod liver oil has a lot of D in it. That's very good.
And 1 teaspoon a day.
It depends on the type of cod liver oil,
Okay.
and we'll tell it usually on the side how much D you're getting in a teaspoon. But with the cod liver oil, you're getting all those omega-3s. And
okay.
omega-3s are also very important for depression. Some of the studies show that getting your adequate amounts of omega-3s in your diet is more effective than Prozac or any of the antidepressants.
This is
to
why
make
I'm
you
so
better.
happy. It's
There
the
you
cod
go.
liver oil.
There you
Sherry,
go.
thank you for coming on.
You're
you
welcome.
always give us such great information.
Thank you.
If you would like to get more information from Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, you can get a hold of her at 440-239-3438 or log on to her website at tenpennyimc.com. We'll be right back with Rate Your Relationship.
We're going to tick off some options for when you get ticked off. When you get mad at someone, whether that person is your mate, a family member, or a friend, do you give the silent treatment, deliberately stop talking to the person for minutes, hours, or days? Start sounding like a cave person, responding only in grunts or one-syllable words. Talk to the person, but avoid contact, like you're wearing a no trespassing sign. Coach Kathy has plenty to say, and she's ready to talk about what to do when you're ticked.
If you answered yes to A, B, or C, there's a good chance that you're doing some kind of form of silent treatment, and that's going to hurt your relationship. So what I recommend you do, that instead of when you have that feeling that you want to close yourself off, go to the person and say, you know, I'm upset right now. I need time and I need space. But here's the operative phrase, I will be back. So let's reconvene at and then decide what time you want to get back together. So it's not okay to indefinitely shut yourself off from the other person and just hang them out there. If you know somebody who wants to take this survey, they can do so by going to CanYouRelateTV.com. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with our next segment.
Just ahead, our personal dog whisperer speaks volumes about helping your hurt hound heal. And later, you're putting your money in a safe place, but you may not get it all back. What's up with that?
Craig and Mark Lindahl and Grange Insurance understand that 1 minute you're out there living life to the fullest. The next thing you know, you've got sweeping changes to make and your family's future to think about. Talk to Lindahl Insurance about how to save by putting all of your insurance with Grange, protecting your possessions and the ones you love. When things zig instead of zag, contact Lindahl Insurance or visit their website.
You know, pets are such an important part of our family. You know that, don't you, Bailey? And if you have a pet that is having an issue of some kind, you want to get help for the pet because, yes, you agree, because how you relate to that pet is so important in incorporating the pet into the family. We are so happy to have Chuck Stella back. You're from Elite K911. You are obedience and behavior with dogs. And we have here your dog, Bailey, right?
This is Bailey.
And what kind of dog is Bailey?
Bailey is a Boxer Mastiff mix.
Okay, beautiful. Look at the coloring. I'm telling you, look at the coloring on this dog is beautiful.
It's a very good paint job.
So now, Bailey's a rescue, right?
Yes, Bailey's a rescue.
Okay, can you explain a little bit about the things that Bailey's been through?
Yeah, Bailey, I got a call a couple years ago from Love Astray. They wanted me to go out and evaluate a dog they had adopted out a year prior to that. They said the dog was very friendly, but they were getting a call that the dog was being aggressive. So they adopted it out friendly, and were getting calls all of a sudden.
Okay.
So I went out to see the dog. The dog was jumping up on a 6-foot fence trying to bite people that were walking down the street on the other side of the fence.
I don't believe that.
Yeah,
Look
it's
at
hard
it.
to believe with her. But she was very, very aggressive, very territorial. And so the people, they didn't want to keep her anymore, so they asked us to take her back.
Okay.
So Love Astray asked me if I would work with her. And of course I worked with her for about 3 or 4 days and decided that I really loved her, which is typical in rescue. You get attached and you start
sure.
adopting dogs. But I ended up keeping her. We turned her around in about a month.
A month?
Yeah, she turned around very quickly. She just needed guidance. She was a very misguided dog. She didn't know she was protecting the territory, which Mastiffs do. They're very protective.
Sure.
So she was just doing what she was allowed to do. So we changed that behavior. We taught her to be social. We have a cue for her. If she ever gets nervous, we give a command.
Okay.
And say hello.
Okay.
So if she ever gets in a situation where she's not sure, we give her the command and she's fine.
Great.
So she does very well with that now.
So is there a definition of what a rescue is? I mean,
Yeah, there really is. I mean, and it's a pretty wide definition, but any dog that's rescued from a situation where they're either self-destructive or abused by someone, I consider a rescue. I consider her a rescue because she was very self-destructive. She was doing things that caused her to possibly be euthanized.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So she would be a rescue. You know, people go to the pet store and they see a puppy mill dog and they want to call that a rescue.
Yeah, Rosie was
Yeah,
that case.
and
yeah.
it really does, it furthers the puppy mill industry.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
know.
kind of a hard rescue because you really want to save the
I
dog.
know, right.
But in that case, you're also promoting it. But,
Right.
you know, the dogs we rescue are dogs from the streets, dogs from the pound, high kill shelters, things like that.
So somebody at home who's watching this and has a dog that's difficult, and they call you. Do you go to their home? Do they bring the dog to you? How does
Depends
that-
on the situation. Some dogs I want to see in my training center.
Okay.
If they're highly aggressive or very territorial, I will determine where I should see them. A lot of times it's at their home because I want to see that actual behavior. A lot of it is just behavior, just naughty dogs that are just rambunctious, young, whatever. A lot of times we'll have them come to our facility and do the evaluation there.
Okay.
But if it's truly aggressive, I want to see it in its own territory so I can determine what needs to be done.
And my guess is you have a plan of how many times you would come out. You'd assess it first and figure out how many. Yeah.
Yeah, the evaluation is where we determine what we think it's going to take for the dog to be turned around. So
She's feeling comfortable.
She's
Look at
getting-
this. She's
she's a
stretching
little lazy.
out.
Yeah.
That's great. So if you have a dog at home and you're having difficulty, you might want to give Chuck a call to be able to come and assess the situation. And you can get a hold of Chuck by calling him at 440-666-0749 or go to your website at EliteK911.com. Thank you so much
you.
for being here and for bringing Bailey. She's
Thank you.
beautiful. Stay tuned. We have the romance review coming up.
Next, the government has a penchant for taking some of your pension. Our financial expert relates how to protect yourself. Then, how can you be in style if you're out of touch with trends? Coach Kathy counsels a frustrated fashionista.
If you and your mate want to step back into one of the most romantic time periods in history, you can do so right here in Cleveland by spending time in the Arcade, located between Euclid and Superior Avenue. Built in 1890 and redesigned in 1940, the Arcade's grandeur shines through its 5-story high atrium and ornate metalwork. The gargoyles circling the top floor and 2 dramatic staircases at either end of the Arcade will pull you into an era of romantic opulence. Whether you choose to stay overnight at the Hyatt Regency, slip into the Chocolate Bar restaurant for a decadent dessert, or simply sit and breathe in the beauty, you and your mate will want to take in this romantic, historical, and architectural gem called the Arcade of Cleveland.
Infrared breast imaging is a non-invasive breast scan that has no touch, pain, or radiation, and it can detect abnormalities years before a mammogram. So schedule your IRBI scan at 440-239-3438 or visit our website at tenpennyimc.com, where you can be an IRBI girl.
How you handle your money can really affect your relationships. And whether you're planning for retirement or for college, you need to figure out, how am I going to use my money? How am I going to invest my money? Well, as always, I'm so excited to have Ken Butsey back. We call you Mr. Chunky. Now, this has nothing to do with your physique. It's about, you give out such good, chunky information. So this is the point in the show where we really want you to get pen and paper, because he's going to give out good, specific information. So we're talking about investments today. High risk, low risk, help me.
Well, it's the beginning of the year, and one of the things that I find is that people invest in things, but they don't necessarily understand what it is that they're investing in.
Right.
Okay, so right now we're just coming through a period in the stock markets, for instance, where the markets have been very good. And so some people have been saying, oh geez, should I get in now? Shouldn't I get in now? Mm-hmm. And they're just not sure. And my number one piece of advice is you should invest in things that you can sleep at night. If you're invested in things and you just don't get it and you're not sleeping at night, probably not a good idea.
So even if it's a low return, if you feel comfortable, you feel safe, peace of mind is what you're saying.
I think peace of mind's
I could buy into that.
incredibly important.
Right.
The other thing is a lot of people invest in things, for instance, such as mutual funds or variable annuities or different products that actually will give you something called a prospectus, which is like a book, and it's like a Bible for the investment. And I brought one with me today.
I get these.
You get these?
I don't read these.
What do you do with them?
I throw them out. Or actually, I wrap things in them.
But when your table's wobbly, you can put them underneath, and then some people stabilize.
Right.
But
yes, I see you've highlighted something there.
Right. Every time I suggest for someone to invest in something, if it's something that comes with a prospectus, I really encourage them to read it, and I certainly go through it. Let me give you just one line from this particular prospectus, okay? Which is,
brace
it's a thick book.
yourselves. Okay.
All right. The fund seeks to meet its objective by investing at least 80% of its assets in equity securities and commodity-linked derivative instruments that provide exposure to the natural resource sector as well as fixed income securities.
Okay, what? I mean, yeah. This
Well,
is where I
and that's where, again, if you don't understand what you're investing in, maybe you need to take a step back and actually try to figure out what that says.
In all due respect, that doesn't help me understand what I'm investing in, so that's why I need you, probably.
Well, or again, that's where if you don't use someone like us, then I strongly suggest before you actually get into it, you figure out what those words mean.
Okay.
Okay.
So how do I know what to invest in? Do I solely depend on you? Because I'm not watching.
No.
Yeah. No, I'm not watching the Dow and the S&P. Are you impressed? I know that.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm not doing that. So the average person out there.
Well, I can tell you, for instance, and I don't exactly know how to answer that. I mean, it's self-serving to say, well, please call me and so on.
We know that, yeah.
But there is a study out there by Dalbar, okay? They're behavioral scientists, and they do studies on how people have done in the markets and what the markets have done over a period of time. The most recent study I saw from Dalbar shows that over a 20-year period of time, the S&P, for instance, had nearly a 9% return, where the average investor only had a 2% return.
Okay.
And on the bond indices, the average bond indices showed like a 7% return. The average investor had less than a 1% return. So clearly, people are not performing as well, at least the people that participated in their study, as well as the market. So what's going on? Are they? Yeah. So right now we have a market that has been very good since September. Finally, September of 2010 was the first time that the markets, not the first time, but the markets were actually higher than they were back in 2001.
Really?
Okay. So we're only just slightly higher than we were back in 2001. Now, since that time, we've had a number of ups and a number of downs below that.
Right.
But had you just bought something in 2001 that was in one of these indices and waited till now, you're probably not that much further ahead than you were back then.
So it's knowing when to get in and when to get out, right? Kind of.
Hopefully, yeah, and have a discipline within it. There's all kinds of risk out there. For instance, just hoarding cash is risky. What happens if inflation goes up?
Well, sure.
What happens if they change the tax code? There's risk there. So it's really a combination of understanding the investments you're in and understanding the risk that is associated with that investment.
And to help me understand, there's you. So if you know you want to invest in something and you're just not sure you're not sure what your risk is, you might want to give Ken a call at 216-751-4229 or go to Ken's website at integrityfirstplanners.com. As always, great information. Got to have you back because we got to keep learning.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Stay tuned because Ask Coach Kathy is coming up next.
Coming up, Kathy helps analyze and accessorize a woman who hates to stop and shop. See what advice Kathy has in store. And next week, it's Valentine's Day. We'll share several sweet suggestions for romancing your mate next week on Can You Relate with Kathy Dawson.
Hi, Murray Plasko from Fashion Floors. Here to remind you that Fashion Floors has a wide selection of carpet and the newest and hottest in hardwood flooring. Plus, we have the very latest in green products like bamboo and cork. Think big, save big, get 12 months same as cash. Call or come see us today.
This is the Ask Coach Kathy segment where you write a question in and I answer it on the air anonymously. So here is this week's question. Kathy, my relationship question doesn't have to do with my relationship with another person, but my relationship with my clothes. I have a decent figure and I could probably wear a lot of things, but I absolutely hate to shop. I get inside a store, get overwhelmed, and can't figure out what goes with what. I usually throw up my hands and walk out and end up wearing the same clothes over and over. Help! Okay, you are lucky today because we have Laura Murata with us. Laura, I am proud to announce that you had a beautiful article in the Plain Dealer that was, I think, December 29th or so, written about, and it was all about the fact that you have style. You're a fashionista. So I called you in because I thought you'd be the perfect person to help this viewer. What would be your advice to this person?
Rome was not built in a day, and so I think for somebody that's not had a good experience or just has very little experience, one of the key things is to start planning. You know, have your goal and work backwards. Something I do all the time is I visualize, whether it's how I want my home to look, what I want to wear for a particular event or something like that, and I start working on that. And I might even take a little notebook and jot some of my ideas down, look through a magazine. If you really struggle, you know, go to a friend, a coworker, somebody whose style you don't necessarily want to copy, but you could see emulating, you know, their overall look. And
I do this with my daughter.
Enlist their help.
Yes.
And also, you know, when someone says, I go to a store, I get confused, I walk out with nothing, I say, you know, shop in a store or boutique, something local where you can really get good help.
Okay,
they're not
good
interested
idea.
in just selling you anything because they need your return business. So the key is you go in and you tell them what you're trying to do. You, again, have that goal and work backwards, and you know, be open to the process. The only way to get confidence in anything is by doing and getting good results and building on that. You know, so if something's not working, stop doing it and try something else.
Just to recap, go to a boutique, because this lady's getting an anxiety attack going into a big store.
You go into a huge store, there's too much.
Right. Try to visualize a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, and if you can't visualize, find somebody who's got good style and pick their brain.
Yeah.
And by the way, I love your accessories. We're going to have you back because we got to talk about accessories.
Yes.
Thank you so much for answering this viewer's question.
You're so welcome.
And thank you for tuning into Can You Relate? Stay tuned for next week because we've got a special Valentine's Day show all about love. So I'll see you next Monday on Can You Relate? Have a great week.
Wardrobe provided by Aurora Farms Premium Outlets. Hair and makeup courtesy of John Roberts Salon and Spa. Want to learn more about today's topics, suggest segments, or add your input? You can do all this and more at CanYouRelateTV.com. Can You Relate with Kathy Dawson is presented by CK Media Productions.